Amputee, she lost both legs and one arm, but a millionaire loved her and married her. The morning sun filtered through the large windows of Memorial Hospital in downtown Chicago, casting long shadows across the rehabilitation wing. Sarah Martinez, 28, sat in her wheelchair by the window, watching the city wake up below. 6 months had passed since the accident that changed everything, and the view from the 7th floor had become her only connection to the world she once knew. "Sarah, time for physical therapy," called Janet, her favorite nurse, approaching with her usual warm smile. Sarah turned away from the window, her remaining hand gripping the wheelchair's armrest. The phantom pain in her missing limbs had subsided somewhat, but the emotional weight remained crushing. The drunk driver who had hit her car head-on had walked away with minor injuries, while she had lost both legs below the knee and her left arm at the shoulder. "I don't feel like it today, Janet," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the hospital's ambient noise. Janet knelt beside the wheelchair, her expression gentle but firm. "Honey, I know it's hard, but Dr. Richardson says you're making incredible progress with your prosthetics. You were walking with the parallel bars yesterday." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "What's the point? My fiancé left me. My friends stopped visiting. Even my own family looks at me like I'm some broken thing they have to fix." She paused, her voice breaking. "I used to teach 3rd grade, Janet. I used to run marathons. I used to be someone." The nurse took Sarah's hand gently. "You're still someone, Sarah. You're still the woman who fought for her life in that ICU. You're still the teacher who inspired hundreds of children. The accident took your limbs, but it didn't take you." As they made their way to the physical therapy room, Sarah noticed the usual stares from other patients and visitors. Some looked with pity, others with curiosity, and a few with barely concealed discomfort. She had grown accustomed to being the object of sympathy rather than admiration. The therapy session was grueling. Learning to balance with prosthetic legs, while having only one arm, created challenges that tested every muscle in her body. But Sarah persevered, driven by a stubborn determination that surprised even herself. "Excellent work today," said Dr. Richardson, reviewing her chart. "Your strength and coordination are improving remarkably. I think we can start discussing discharge plans soon." Sarah's heart sank. "Discharge to where? I can't afford to modify my apartment. I can't drive. I can't even shower without help." "We'll work on all of that," the doctor assured her. "There are programs available and your insurance—" "My insurance is running out," Sarah interrupted, "and those programs have waiting lists longer than my rehabilitation." That evening, Sarah sat alone in her hospital room, staring at the ceiling. The television droned in the background, showing some mindless reality show. She thought about her life before the accident, her small apartment near Lincoln Park, her classroom filled with eager faces, her weekend runs along Lake Michigan. All of it felt like someone else's memories now. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister Emma, "Thinking of you. Call me when you're ready." Sarah had stopped returning Emma's calls weeks ago. She couldn't bear the forced optimism, the careful way everyone spoke to her now, as if she might shatter at any moment. In truth, she already had shattered. She was just learning to live with the pieces. 3 weeks later, Sarah was finally deemed ready for discharge. The social worker, Mrs. Chen, had found her a spot in a transitional living facility in Evanston, about 30 minutes north of Chicago. It wasn't ideal, but it was affordable and accessible. "It's temporary," Mrs. Chen explained as they reviewed the paperwork. "Just until we can arrange more permanent housing and get you connected with vocational rehabilitation services." Sarah nodded mechanically. The facility was essentially a group home for people with disabilities, and while she was grateful for the option, it felt like another step away from the life she had known. On her last day at Memorial Hospital, Sarah, was in the courtyard garden, enjoying the late afternoon sun. The October air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and the distant smell of food from the hospital cafeteria. She had managed to maneuver her wheelchair to a quiet spot near the fountain, away from the main walkways. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Sarah looked up to see a man in his mid-30s standing beside the bench near her wheelchair. He was tall, with dark hair and kind eyes, wearing a simple button-down shirt and jeans. Nothing about his appearance suggested wealth or status. "No, go ahead," Sarah replied, slightly surprised by the interaction. Most people gave her a wide berth these days. "Thank you." He sat down and glanced around the garden. "Beautiful place. I never noticed this garden before." "Are you visiting someone?" Sarah asked, curious despite herself. "My business partner's daughter had surgery yesterday, appendectomy. She's doing well, but he wanted to stay close." He paused. "I'm Michael. By the way, Michael Chen." "Sarah." She hesitated, then added, I was a patient here." "Was? Congratulations on whatever milestone that represents." His tone was genuine, without the patronizing quality she had grown to expect. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Sarah found herself studying him from the corner of her eye. There was something calming about his presence, something that didn't make her feel like a curiosity or a tragedy. "I used to be a teacher," Sarah found herself saying. "Third grade. I loved it. Used to be. Did you change careers?" Sarah's jaw tightened. "I had an accident. I don't think I can go back to teaching now." Michael turned to look at her directly. "Why not?" The question was so simple, so matter-of-fact, that it caught her off guard. I lost." She gestured vaguely at her missing limbs. "I see that," Michael said quietly. "But you said you loved teaching. Did the accident change that?" Sarah stared at him. "You don't understand. Children stare. They ask questions. I can't even write on a whiteboard properly anymore." "Kids are curious, that's true, but they're also remarkably accepting once they understand something." Michael leaned forward slightly. "My nephew has autism. When he started at a new school, the kids were confused at first, but his teacher turned it into a learning opportunity. Now he's one of the most popular kids in his class." Sarah felt a flicker of something she hadn't experienced in months: possibility. "It's not the same thing." "No, it's not," Michael agreed. "But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is that you're still the same person who loved teaching, who connected with children, who made a difference in their lives." A nurse approached them. "Sarah, we need to finish your discharge paperwork." Sarah nodded but found herself reluctant to leave. "I should go." "Of course." Michael stood as well. "Sarah, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you seem like someone who's been through something terrible, and you're incredibly strong for making it this far. Don't let anyone convince you that your story is over." As Sarah wheeled away, she glanced back to see Michael still standing by the bench, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. That night, for the first time in months, she fell asleep, thinking about something other than everything she had lost. The transitional living facility in Evanston was a converted Victorian house that had been modified for accessibility. Sarah's room was small but comfortable, with a hospital bed, a desk, and a large window that looked out onto a tree-lined street. Her roommate, Maria, was a 45-year-old woman who had lost her leg to diabetes complications. "The trick is to keep busy," Maria advised on Sarah's first night. "Sitting around feeling sorry for yourself is a luxury we can't afford." Sarah bristled at the comment. "I'm not feeling sorry for myself." Maria raised an eyebrow. "Honey, I've been here 8 months. I've seen that look before. It's the same one I had when I first arrived. The routine at the facility was structured but flexible. There were group therapy sessions, individual counseling, occupational therapy, and vocational training programs." Sarah participated reluctantly at first, but gradually found herself engaging more actively. During a group session 2 weeks after her arrival, the facilitator, Dr. Williams, asked each participant to share one goal for the week. "I want to cook a meal by myself," said James, a veteran who had lost both arms in Afghanistan. "I want to take the bus downtown," said Linda, who was adjusting to life with a visual impairment. When it was Sarah's turn, she hesitated. I want to contact the school district to see if there might be a way for me to teach again." The group was quiet for a moment. Then Maria smiled. "Now that's what I'm talking about." After the session, Sarah sat in the common room, staring at her phone. The idea of calling the district terrified her, but Michael's words kept echoing in her mind. "Don't let anyone convince you that your story is over." She dialed the number for Lincoln Elementary, where she had taught for 5 years. Lincoln Elementary. "This is Grace." "Hi, Grace. It's Sarah Martinez. I used to teach 3rd grade there." "Sarah, oh my goodness, how are you? We've all been thinking about you." The warmth in Grace's voice brought tears to Sarah's eyes. I'm getting better. I was wondering if I could speak with Principal Anderson." "Of course, hold on." A few minutes later, Principal Anderson's familiar voice came on the line. "Sarah, it's so good to hear from you. How are you feeling?" "I'm learning to adapt," Sarah said carefully. "Mr. Anderson, I was wondering, is there any possibility of me returning to teaching? I know it would require some accommodations, but..." "Sarah, of course there's a possibility. We've been hoping you'd call. The district has been holding your position, and we've been working with the Disability Services Office to explore options." Sarah's heart raced. "Really? Really? When you're ready, we'd love to have you back. The kids ask about you all the time." That evening, Sarah called Emma for the first time in months. "Sarah? Oh my God, I'm so glad you called." Emma's voice was thick with emotion. "I'm sorry I've been so distant," Sarah said. I needed time to figure things out." "You don't have to apologize. I just wanted you to know that I'm here, no matter what you need." Sarah told Emma about the conversation with Principal Anderson, about the possibility of returning to teaching. "That's incredible, Sarah. I'm so proud of you." "I'm scared, Emma. What if I can't do it? What if the kids are afraid of me?" "Then you'll figure it out, just like you always have. You're the strongest person I know, Sarah. You always have been." After hanging up, Sarah sat by her window, watching the evening settle over the quiet street. For the first time since the accident, she felt something approaching hope. It was fragile and uncertain, but it was there. 2 weeks later, Sarah was walking through the grocery store with her prosthetic legs, carefully managing her shopping basket with her one remaining arm. The simple act of grocery shopping had become a complex orchestration of balance, timing, and determination. She had learned to ask for help when necessary, but today she was determined to manage on her own. She was reaching for a box of cereal on a high shelf when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Would you like some help with that?" Sarah turned to see Michael Chen standing in the aisle, wearing the same genuine smile she remembered from the hospital garden. "Michael, what are you doing in Evanston?" "I live about 10 minutes from here," he said, easily retrieving the cereal box and placing it in her basket. "I was just picking up some things for dinner. How are you doing?" "I'm better. I'm living in a transitional facility nearby, working on getting back to teaching." "That's wonderful. I told you your story wasn't over." They walked together toward the checkout line, and Sarah found herself telling him about her conversation with Principal Anderson, about the possibility of returning to Lincoln Elementary. "Have you thought about how you'll approach it, going back to the classroom?" "Every day," Sarah admitted. "I'm terrified the children will be afraid of me, or that I won't be able to handle the physical demands of teaching." Michael was quiet, and for a moment, Can I tell you something? I volunteer at a children's hospital downtown. I've spent a lot of time around kids who are dealing with difficult situations. Kids are incredibly resilient, and they respond to authenticity. If you're genuine with them, they'll accept you. You volunteer at a children's hospital every Saturday for the past 3 years. I read stories, play games, just spend time with kids who are stuck in the hospital for extended periods. Sarah looked at him with new curiosity. What do you do for work? I'm in real estate development. My partner and I focus on affordable housing projects. They reached the checkout line, and Michael insisted on helping her load her groceries into her modified car. As she prepared to drive away, he hesitated. Sarah, I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous, but would you like to have coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your teaching plans. Sarah's first instinct was to decline. She wasn't ready for whatever this was. But something about Michael's straightforward manner, his lack of pity or discomfort around her disabilities, made her pause. Okay, she said, I'd like that. They exchanged phone numbers, and Sarah drove back to the facility with a strange lightness in her chest. Maria noticed her mood immediately. You look different, Maria observed. Good different. I ran into someone I met at the hospital. He asked me to coffee. Like a date? I don't know. Maybe just as friends. Maria smiled knowingly. Honey, I've been around long enough to know the difference. That's definitely a date. That night, Sarah lay in bed thinking about Michael's easy acceptance of her situation, his lack of awkwardness, around her disabilities. She had grown so accustomed to being treated like a fragile thing that his normal behavior felt revolutionary. A week later, they met at a small cafe near Northwestern University. Michael arrived first and had chosen a table that would accommodate her wheelchair easily without making a big show of it. So, tell me about these kids you're going back to teach, he said, after they had ordered. Sarah found herself talking more freely than she had with anyone since the accident. She told him about her former students, about the joy of watching a child's face light up when they finally understood a concept, about the daily challenges and rewards of teaching. You light up when you talk about it, Michael observed. It's obvious this is your calling. I hope I still have what it takes. What made you a good teacher before the accident? Sarah considered the question. I think it was my ability to connect with each child individually, to see their potential even when they couldn't see it themselves. And has that changed? No. Sarah realized. That hasn't changed at all. Then you still have what it takes. As they talked, Sarah learned more about Michael. He had grown up in a working-class family in Chicago, earned a scholarship to Northwestern, and built his business from the ground up. He was passionate about creating affordable housing in underserved communities, and he spoke about his work with the same enthusiasm Sarah felt for teaching. Why children's hospitals? Sarah asked. Michael's expression grew more serious. My younger brother died of leukemia when he was 8. I was 12. I spent a lot of time in hospitals with him, and I saw how much it meant to him when adults treated him like a normal kid instead of a sick child. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but it taught me something important about dignity and respect. Everyone deserves to be seen as a whole person, not defined by their challenges. Sarah felt something shift inside her chest. Is that why you weren't awkward around me at the hospital? You mean because of your amputations? Michael's tone was matter-of-fact. I saw a woman sitting alone in a garden, and she looked like she might want some company. Everything else was just details. By the time they finished their coffee, Sarah realized she had spent 2 hours without thinking about her disabilities, without worrying about how she looked or what people might think. For the first time in months, she had simply been herself. Over the next few months, Sarah and Michael continued to meet regularly, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for dinner, occasionally for walks along Lake Michigan. Sarah had returned to Lincoln Elementary on a part-time basis, working with the school district to make the necessary accommodations. Her first day back in the classroom had been as challenging as she had anticipated. The children stared, asked direct questions, and struggled to understand her prosthetics. But following Michael's advice, Sarah had decided to address their curiosity head-on. "I know you have questions about my arms and legs," she had told her. "Third-grade class on that first day. I was in a car accident and I lost some parts of my body, but I'm still the same person inside, and I still love teaching you." 8-year-old Tommy had raised his hand. "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes, but not the way you might think. The hardest part wasn't the physical pain, it was feeling like I couldn't do the things I love anymore. But you know what? I was wrong about that." "Can you still teach us math?" asked Lily, ever practical. "I can teach you everything I taught you before. I just might do it a little differently now." By the end of the first week, the children's initial curiosity had transformed into acceptance. They helped her carry supplies without being asked, and some of the more thoughtful students began including disability awareness in their writing assignments and art projects. Principal Anderson had been right. The accommodations were manageable. The district provided a teaching assistant for certain activities, installed a few accessibility features in the classroom, and allowed Sarah to use adaptive technology for writing on the whiteboard. One evening in December, Michael picked Sarah up from the transitional facility for dinner. She had been cleared to move into her own apartment after the new year, and they were celebrating her progress. "I have something to tell you," Sarah said as they walked into the restaurant. "Good news or bad news?" "Good news. I've been offered a full-time position for next year." Michael's face lit up. "Sarah, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you." "There's more. I've been asked to speak at a conference for educators about inclusive teaching practices. They want me to share my story." "Will you do it?" Sarah nodded. "I think so. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over. Now I'm realizing it might just be beginning." Over dinner, Michael was quieter than usual. Sarah noticed him fidgeting with his napkin, and he seemed distracted. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "Sarah, I need to tell you something about my business." Sarah's heart sank. She had learned to expect disappointment, and Michael's serious tone triggered her anxiety. "My company? We're not just a small real estate development firm. We're actually quite large. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you because I didn't want it to change anything between us." "How large?" Michael took a deep breath. "We're worth about $50 million. I'm wealthy, Sarah. Very wealthy." Sarah sat back in her chair, processing this information. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I liked the way you looked at me, like I was just a regular person. I've had relationships before where people were interested in what I could provide, not who I was. With you, it was different. I don't know what to say. I hope you'll say it doesn't matter, because it doesn't change how I feel about you." Sarah looked at Michael across the table, studying his face. "How do you feel about me?" "I'm in love with you, Sarah. I have been for months." The words hung between them, and Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Michael, I know this is complicated. I know you're still healing, still finding your way. But I need you to know that I see you, all of you, and I love what I see." Sarah reached across the table with her remaining hand, and Michael took it gently. "I love you too," she whispered. "I was just afraid to admit it." That night, Sarah called Emma to share the news about both the job offer and Michael's revelation. "Wait, he's a millionaire?" Emma asked, incredulous. "That's not the important part," Sarah said, though she was still processing the information herself. "But it is kind of amazing, right? I mean, after everything you've been through, Emma, I need you to understand something. I didn't fall in love with him because he's wealthy. I fell in love with him because he sees me as a whole person. He never treated me like I was broken." "I know, Sarah. I can hear it in your voice. You sound happy." "I am happy. For the first time since the accident, I'm genuinely happy." Spring arrived in Chicago with its usual dramatic flair, transforming the city from grey winter bleakness to vibrant green renewal. Sarah had moved into her own accessible apartment in Lincoln Park, just a few blocks from the school. The apartment was on the ground floor with wide doorways and an adapted kitchen that allowed her to cook independently. Michael had been respectful of her need for independence, supporting her transition without taking over. He had quietly paid for some of the apartment modifications, but only after asking permission and ensuring that Sarah maintained control of her living situation. "I want to show you something," Michael said one Saturday morning as they walked. Along the lakefront path, he had become skilled at matching his pace to hers, and Sarah had grown more confident with her prosthetics over the long winter months. They stopped at a construction site near Millennium Park, where a new building was rising from the ground. The sign read, "Chen Development, Affordable Housing Initiative." "This is one of our projects," Michael explained. 80 units of affordable housing for families with full accessibility features. "We broke ground last month." Sarah read the mission statement on the construction sign. "Providing dignity and opportunity through quality, affordable housing." "That's beautiful, Michael. This is what you do. This is what we do. My partner David and I started the company because we both grew up in families that struggled to find decent, affordable housing. We wanted to create something different." As they walked around the construction site, Michael explained the features that would make the building fully accessible: ramps, elevators, modified kitchens and bathrooms, visual and auditory aids for residents with sensory impairments. "We consult with disability advocacy groups on every project. We want to create spaces where people can live independently, regardless of their physical challenges." Sarah felt a deep admiration for Michael's commitment to his work. "Is this why you were so comfortable around me from the beginning? Because of your work?" "Partly, maybe. But mostly it was just you. You were sitting in that garden looking sad, but not defeated. There was something about your strength that drew me in." That evening, they had dinner at Sarah's apartment. She had prepared a simple meal, proud of her ability to cook independently in her adapted kitchen. As they ate, Michael brought up a topic that had been on both their minds. "Sarah, I've been thinking about our future." "What about it?" "I know we've been taking things slowly, and I respect that. But I can't imagine my life without you in it." Sarah set down her fork. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to build a life with you, whatever that looks like, however long it takes. I want to be there for your teaching career, for your speaking engagements, for all the amazing things you're going to do. Michael, I need you to understand something. I'm not the same person I was before the accident. I have good days and bad days. I have physical limitations that aren't going to change. I have medical expenses and ongoing therapy needs. I know all of that, and I need to know that you're not with me because you feel sorry for me or because you want to rescue me." Michael reached across the table and took her hand. "Sarah, you rescued yourself. You came back from something that would have destroyed most people. You're teaching again. You're speaking publicly about your experience. You're helping other people navigate their own challenges. You don't need rescuing." "Then why do you want to be with me?" "Because you make me laugh. Because you challenge me to be better. Because you see the world in a way that makes me want to see it too. Because when you talk about your students, your whole face lights up. Because you're brave and honest, and you don't let anyone, including yourself, get away with bullshit." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. "I love you so much it scares me." "Good. I love you so much it scares me too." That night, they talked until dawn about their dreams, their fears, their hopes for the future. Sarah told Michael about her plans to write a book about her experience, about her desire to develop curriculum for teaching children about disability and inclusion. Michael shared his vision for expanding their housing projects to other cities. for creating a national model for accessible, affordable housing. "I want to help," Sarah said. "With your housing projects, I want to consult on the accessibility features, help train staff on working with residents who have disabilities." "Are you sure? You already have so much on your plate with teaching and speaking, I'm sure. We could be partners in this, Michael, really partners." Michael smiled. "Partners in everything." 1 year later, Sarah stood in the bridal suite of the Palmer House Hotel, looking at herself in the full-length mirror. The wedding dress had been custom-made to accommodate her prosthetics, with elegant lines that complemented her figure without hiding her reality. She had chosen to wear her prosthetic legs and arm for the ceremony, wanting to walk down the aisle on her own. Emma was adjusting the train of the dress, tears streaming down her face. "You look absolutely beautiful, Sarah. I can't believe this is happening," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with wonder rather than disbelief. "Believe it. You deserve this happiness." The past year had been a whirlwind of growth and change. Sarah had not only returned to full-time teaching, but had also begun working as a consultant for Chen Development, helping to design accessible housing features and training programs. She had spoken at 6 educational conferences and was halfway through writing her book. Michael had proposed 3 months earlier, during a quiet evening at home. There had been no grand gestures or public displays, just the two of them, a simple ring and a question that felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I don't need to ask if you'll marry me," he had said. "I know you will, because we're already partners in everything that matters. I just want to make it official." The wedding was small and intimate, held in the hotel's rooftop garden overlooking Grant Park. Sarah had insisted on walking down the aisle unassisted, her prosthetic legs steady beneath her. As she made her way toward Michael, she saw the faces of everyone who had supported her journey. Her family, her colleagues from school, Maria and other friends from the transitional facility, Dr. Richardson and Janet from the hospital. But her eyes were focused on Michael, who was watching her with an expression of pure love and admiration. When she reached him, he took her hand and whispered, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." The ceremony was officiated by Dr. Williams, the therapist who had helped Sarah through her darkest months. She had asked him to perform the ceremony because he had been there when she first began to believe in herself again. "Sarah and Michael," Dr. Williams said, "you have both shown me what it means to build a life based on love, respect, and genuine partnership. Your relationship has been a testament to the power of seeing and accepting each other completely." In her vows, Sarah spoke about the journey that had brought them together. "Michael, when I met you, I thought my story was ending. I thought the accident had taken everything that mattered about who I was, but you helped me understand that our stories don't end when we face tragedy. They just change direction. You didn't fall in love with me despite my disabilities. You fell in love with me as a complete person who happens to have disabilities. You saw my strength when I couldn't see it myself." Michael's vows were equally moving. "Sarah, you taught me that love isn't about what we can do for each other. It's about who we become when we're together. You've made me a better man, a better partner, and a better person. You've shown me that resilience isn't about overcoming our challenges. It's about integrating them into a life that's meaningful and full of purpose." As they exchanged rings, Sarah felt a profound sense of completeness. Not because Michael had fixed her or completed her, but because they had chosen to build something together that was stronger than either of them could have created alone. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and storytelling. Sarah's former students had made a video message that brought everyone to tears, sharing how she had taught them that different doesn't mean less than, and that everyone has something valuable to contribute. Maria gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying simultaneously. When Sarah first arrived at the facility, she was convinced that her life was over. I told her that sitting around feeling sorry for herself was a luxury she couldn't afford. Well, Sarah, you've proven that wrong. You've turned feeling sorry for yourself into feeling grateful for yourself, and that's made all the difference. As the evening wound down, Sarah and Michael stepped out onto the hotel's balcony, looking out over the city lights. Sarah thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment, the accident, the hospital, the long months of rehabilitation, the fear and despair, and ultimately the gradual rediscovery of hope and purpose. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met?" Sarah asked. "No," Michael said without hesitation. "I think we were meant to find each other. Maybe not in the way it happened, but somehow. I used to think the accident ruined my life. Now I think maybe it was just a detour, a really difficult detour that led me to where I was supposed to be. With me, with you, but also with myself. The person I've become through all of this. I like her better than the person I was before." Michael pulled her closer. "I love both versions of you, but I'm grateful for the woman you are now, because she's the one who chose to build a life with me." As they looked out over the city, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them together. She thought about the children in her classroom who had learned to see disability as simply another form of human diversity. She thought about the families who would live in the accessible housing units she had helped design. She thought about the book she was writing, which would hopefully help other people navigate their own difficult journeys. "Michael." "Yes? I'm happy. Really, truly happy. I didn't think that would ever be possible again." "I'm happy too, Sarah. Happier than I ever imagined I could be." They stood together in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other in the most unexpected circumstances and chosen to build something beautiful from the pieces of their individual stories. Sarah Martinez Chen had indeed lost both legs and one arm in a tragic accident, but she had gained something far more valuable: a deep understanding of her own resilience, a love that saw her completely, and a purpose that extended far beyond herself. The accident had ended one chapter of her life, but it had also begun another, one filled with love, purpose, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that she had not just survived her challenges, but had transformed them into something meaningful and beautiful. As they walked back into the reception to rejoin their family and friends, Sarah realized that her story wasn't about a millionaire who loved an amputee. It was about two people who had learned to see each other's wholeness, despite and because of their individual challenges and imperfections. It was, as Dr. Williams had said, a love that defied all expectations, including their own.